Hi, everyone. So excited for this today. Webinar day. Getting some technical stuff set up here, and we'll get started momentarily. Just adding some spotlights. How many will it let me add? Let's see. We'll get Joyce in here too. Yeah, there we go. We're all on. Great. And thank you to Kayleen, our interpreter, for access for today. Closed captions are available. You just need to turn them on through Microsoft Teams, and you'll be able to see the closed captions. And we'll be getting started with our webinar on transferable skills. So excited. Joyce, I wanted to kick things over to you to start, just so you can say a few words to kick off this amazing webinar and welcome everybody into this summer season. I know we're going into tomorrow being a very important month for the disability community. So I'll give it to you to give a few words, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Gerald. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited about this webinar. I'm going to tell you why. We are determined to help you. There are a lot of people right now that need help, and we want to pay it forward. And you know what? You need to pay it forward because you can share this with others. So I'm Joyce Bender, the CEO and founder of Bender Consulting Services, a national company that focuses on the competitive employment of Americans with disabilities. And I live with epilepsy. So we seek employment from the junior through the executive level for people with disabilities, veterans with disabilities. But right now, we want to help everyone. We are here to help everyone. So you are in the hands of two great people that work for me, Gerald Homey and Jill Zomp. Can't think of anyone better. So remember, you must remember how awesome you are. No matter what your situation, no matter what's going on, get in your mind. Every day when I get up, I'm looking for a job. And we want you to find a job. So, Gerald and Jill, have a great webinar.
Thanks, Joyce. Thank you for stopping by and kicking this off. And I'm Gerald Homey. I'm the manager of the talent acquisition team here at Bender. I've worked for Bender for 18 years, have a nice collection of hidden disabilities. And my dad was the very first person with a disability that Joyce ever placed into a job. I have the privilege and honor of leading the great team that does the work of placing people with disabilities into these roles across the US, with this incredible superstar on my team, Jill Zomp. And she has created such amazing content for this webinar today. I did not write the stuff that you're going to see in this presentation. I do not get credit for that. Jill spent so much time researching and developing incredible content to help everybody looking for work today transfer their skills into new careers. So when we're talking today, know that this knowledge comes from the brain of Jill Zomp, my amazing lead recruiter, the talent acquisition coordinator here at Bender, who does so much to dedicate her life to the competitive employment of people with disabilities. So Jill, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and go over what we're going to be talking about here today, the overview of our plan.
Thank you very much, Gerald. As you guys have heard, I'm the talent acquisition coordinator here at Bender Consulting Services. I have been here for about 9 years now, and it is a huge passion of mine to find competitive employment for people with disabilities. If you haven't met me, I started here because my husband lost his vision and couldn't find work after getting a bachelor's degree in IT way back whenever there was a million jobs for every one person that had a degree in IT. And it took him almost 4 years after getting that degree to even find a company that was willing to employ him just because of his disability. So, and that was through Bender, and that's how I started here. And it's been one of those most amazing things that has changed not just his life, but my life and my family's life. And I said, I have to continue and pay this forward. And it has just been such a blessing to be here. And I'm so grateful to be here today. I started out here working a lot in our federal opportunities. And so I got to really understand the federal sector. And whenever everything in the industries have changed over the past few years, especially since COVID, we've seen a lot of people looking to reorient themselves into new careers. Joyce wanted to do something and help those looking for that. So we're doing our webinar series, and this one is one of the great subjects that I'm very excited to present about today. So I'm going to be sharing my PowerPoint. Sorry, I got to find it. I had it up a second ago. All right, here we go. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint just so everybody can follow along. But this is about transferable skills for new career paths because it is such a changing environment.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Jill. Excited to get started here. So, why we're here today? Because there are so many people out there right now that need a change in their career. There are so many people that are looking to redefine what they are looking to do for a number of different reasons. Whether you're leaving the federal government and looking for a new role, you're a veteran that is leaving that work, the military, and looking for your first civilian career, or you are in a professional career field where you're finding out that job role does not exist anymore and you need to find something new to do. Many candidates we find come to Bender and ask us the questions, what kind of jobs are out there for us? And as recruiters, Jill and I often find ourselves in that navigator seat for them, helping them take all those things and find the next career path for them. How do what they have done, they have learned, help them on their journey of their next career role? What do companies look for today and where can we go? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And the expectations for what people need have changed into modern society. And we're going to talk about what skills can you transfer from these different types of jobs, how you can apply them to these new paths, and what tools and resources can you use to help you along the way. So that's our goals. Excited to get started. And of course, the environment we're in, job search. I love this picture you picked out, Joe, by the way.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to get started. So the current job search environment is so different than it was a couple years ago. As we think of things like Moore's Law and everything just moving faster and faster, things have changed so much in the past decade, even in the past 2 to 3 years. I think of everything either pre-COVID or post-COVID, but now we have a 5-year gap post-COVID, and things have changed so much. Number one, biggest thing that's impacting so many different careers is AI and automation tools across every industry. We cannot necessarily ignore it at this point, so we just need to learn how to work with it and what opportunities can be available out there. But other things that have changed so much is digital skills, data literacy, and human-centered capabilities. And what that means is being able to adapt to all these changes and being able to understand how to find the resources that you need, not just knowing things off the top of your head as much as being able to find resources. A lot of roles have gone remote, and now they're becoming more and more back to the office for certain areas. And some people really wanted the remote, and just knowing which opportunities out there have that capability and which ones they're leaning more toward being in the office can help you a lot whenever you're deciding what different areas you want to go into. Also, employers are now really starting to value the ability to move into different directions, to quickly be able to solve problems. People also who will be dependable, and not somebody who's going to, maybe leave the job every 2 to 3 months. And then lifelong learning means, continuing your education so that you can bring the best skills out there for them. It's about return on investment. That's what employers are very much focused on right now. And if they're investing in a new employee, they want to know what they're going to, be able to get in that investment. There's also, as I said before, tech is just paramount right now. So being able to adapt into that and learning techniques to find your way around it, because it's not about whether or not you know how to do something in Excel. It's about whether or not you know how to find the right instructions to do it, because it's all out there. It's all at our fingertips, and it's about navigating that. All right, industries that are declining versus growing. Declining, you're going to get the traditional administrative data entry are going to be on the steep decline. A lot of that can be automated now. Print media and publishing as well. So many things out there are digital. It's cost effective. It's not going to be an industry that's going to continue to grow. Also, as I think everybody knows, federal roles affected by consolidation is a big one too. There's not as many opportunities in the federal government, and those that are open are usually filled by people who have already been affected by that automation or consolidation. However, there is good news. There's actually a lot of good news. Growing areas, big growing area is healthcare. There are so many opportunities in the healthcare field. I think Gerald and I could probably talk for hours alone just about healthcare.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity and automation. A lot of that is necessary, and they are seeing a stronger need, not just for the IT side of that, but also in the processes and procedure side of that in organizations as well, because it is a very real thing that will affect your business if you don't have the capabilities for it. And then with the advent of e-commerce growing and growing and growing, logistics and supply chain is a huge booming industry right now as well. Now, this is a lot of information on here. I swear I'm not going to read every single thing on here, but I just wanted to give some reasons to why some of these are on the decline. Obviously, we talked about administrative and data entry being much more absorbed into that AI and different productivity tools, but there's also other things that you think about whenever you go in and you try to have you have a problem with your app. Tier 1 customer support, even to some extent, tier 1 like help desk support are now being automated. I know me and Gerald were talking about, I think it was avocado.
Avocado,
Avocado, that's it.
the Chipotle AI tool
Yeah, that is.
automates HR functions.
Yeah, so even that, and that's not, obviously human to human will never fully be out of style, but that first line, getting those information, uploaded into the systems, that's getting automated now. Same with different types of account payable, account receivable, with everything being online and a customer has to go in and input information. A lot of that basic bookkeeping is also becoming more and more automated. And then, as I said before, print and traditional roles are becoming more automated as well. But that's, because the digital marketing is just so abundant right now. Also, a lot of companies are looking for redundancies and trying to remove them, as especially here in the United States, as they're trying to evolve with our evolving workforce. They're trying to become more and more organized and structured. And so for that, they are finding any type of redundancy. So sometimes people in those areas may need to understand how to move into that. And obviously a huge focus is on cross-functional teams. I think everybody probably knows that buzzword by now, but cross-functional teams means it's one team that can do a bunch of different things as needed, and being able to work with them appropriately kind of helps with that redundancy as well. All right, careers on the incline, the positivity side of things. There's a lot of really amazing things that are actually being invented or stimulated through AI, but also through all the changes that we've seen recently. Data analytics. Everybody was just really absorbing all the data forever. And now they're like, what do we do with all this data and how can we use it appropriately and effectively? Cybersecurity, as we talked about, product and program management. So this is, how do I keep this streamlined? I'm going to have, very specific people overseeing very specific different programs or products within the organization. Agile, as we said before, is big, and there's the whole agile methodology within there too. So everybody, if you haven't learned or taken a quick YouTube exploration or LinkedIn learning about the agile process, it's actually very logical and I highly recommend it. Human resources, there is, the decline of that first level, but there is so much more with people analytics because we have analysis, employee engagement. How do we retain employees? Because that's a big one for employers right now. And yes, talent acquisition, because it becomes a point where you can no longer just, depend exclusively on AI. There's also digital marketing, as I've talked about, cloud and infrastructure. Everything's on the cloud. That has to be supported. That has to be maintained. Supply chain, we talked about. And then corporate sustainability and ESG. These are going to be really focused with the international organizations, especially, but also here within the US, there needs to be that, because whenever you're implementing new technologies or just a new way of doing anything, you need to understand what the outcomes of that will be, because that is so important for every organization to be able to do that, to pivot as needed, because things are changing so rapidly. They need to make sure that they are on the right track at all times. So a lot of that organizational structure is becoming more and more needed within those organizations.
If I may, Jill, too, on
Yes.
that, on one of those roles, you talked about, if you could go back one slide, on the cybersecurity, also on the risk management side of things. People
Yes.
always just think of these roles as just IT roles, but there's a lot of roles in preventing fraudulent activity that now AI is becoming such a part of creating more fraudulent activity. There's a boom of hiring in this. For example, in banking industries, helping prevent customers from fraudulent activity on their bank accounts, or people deep faking phone calls to pretend to be somebody to ask for payment or credit cards. And there's a whole bunch of new opportunities to work in those fields that don't require you to have a cybersecurity degree or specialized training, but more of a investigative, protective mindset, and then to break into those fields. So that's another example of just something that's out there that you may not think about that your skills could transfer to.
Thank you, Gerald. Yes, absolutely. I just got one of those texts literally right before we started here. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not waiting for a package. Why do I need to click this link? Yeah, no, just before we started, like 5 minutes before we started. Some rapidly growing roles in AI and automation beyond just the technical. Well, obviously there's a lot of technical roles. So IT, where IT is really pivoting, and those in IT, I believe, are acutely aware of how much IT is pivoting and changing right now. There is opportunities available. Obviously, there's some legacy types of languages that will always need to be there, but also, and IT is, or I'm sorry, not IT, AI is not perfect with coding either, as we all know. But there are some new roles, new emerging roles, that if you're looking to transition into a growing field where there's a lot of opportunities out there, you can look at the machine learning engineering or, the RPA development. There's so many out there. But then there's also the strategy and business roles, like I said, where you're actually looking at the different AI products, you're looking at the different ways that they can be utilized, whether it's through that data analysis and being able to accurately find the trends, and then determining next steps from that. But then also the consultants, people that are trying to get AI into their organizations. The process analysts are a big one now too, and solutions architects are always big, but now AI solutions architects have come into that as well. And then policy. So you have those ethics. There's so many things out there for the ethics now, based on it because it's so new, and also some governance and management regulations, things like that. And that's for individual organizations where a lot of those people coming from the federal government may see some things that they have a lot of those same skills that maybe could be applicable to these new types of technology. All right. There's also some shifting in employer expectations and hiring practices, which I think everyone's like, oh, thank goodness. There's not as much emphasis on job titles as there once was. It's more about what you did. So I think as everybody's like, well, I had this title, but really I did this and this and this and this and this. And nobody knew that. Now it's more of, oh, wow, that's great. That's actually what we're looking for, because so many of these roles are changing. A lot of people or a lot of companies are now looking for those skills instead of the actual job titles because they maybe didn't exist or they had a very different type of responsibilities before. There's also going to be emphasis on those transferable skills. And then you think about the use of any type of AI within hiring practices. So applicant tracking systems for screening candidates. Whenever I have to put jobs into any type of job board, it asks me not what job titles I'm looking for, but what skills I'm looking for. So making sure that you know how to utilize those applicant tracking systems on the side of the applicant is huge. And then candidates expected to be more able to show what they have. I always say, it's not about whether or not you have the skills. It's about whether or not the employer can see that you have the skills. So tailoring your resume, I know it's a pain, but it is so important. You don't want to have a 20-page resume. I did federal hiring. I know about the 20-page resumes. It is not the same in the private industry. General of thumb, we had a whole other webinar on this, but general of thumb, 1 page if you're new to the industry, 2 pages if you've got about 5 years to 10 years of experience, and then you can have up to 3 if it's all relevant experience. You really need to focus on the relevant experience and keeping your audience entertained, but listing those skills are now paramount as well, because right now, if I get a resume in and I see the skills listed, I'm going to be honed in on that first, make it organized, make it easy to understand, and put it into all those applicant tracking systems. And that's going to help the employers now. All right, I swear I think this is the last one with a lot of information. All the rest are much more entertaining. Changing your hiring priorities, like I said, skills over title. The reason why it's because everything's changing, and outcomes matter. And what I wanted to focus in on that is that successful outcomes versus failures, and also the size and scale of it matter too. So being able to say that you had successful, projects, implementations, whatever it should be, having that success and showing the size of it is huge. Other things on here that, the transferable skills is what we're talking about today, but they really are so important in these new emergent industries, and being able to articulate that so that the employers can know is just so important. And then self-advocacy, like I said, you need to be the person, you need to be proactive, you need to show them. It's no longer a job seeker market. It is an employer market. And what that means is it's not about them courting different possible employees. It's about the employee showing what you get when you hire me. Understanding transferable skills. So this is the next section. Gerald, did you want to say anything else before I continue? I'm so sorry. I just went right into it.
I was just going to say too, I think, no, I'll save this comment till later. I'll save this till later slide. Thank you.
Okay.
I think there's more context they need to learn first.
So transferable skills, everybody says that's great, but what are transferable skills? What can I do? How can I show these, right? So obviously I have this beautiful little infographic. I promise we'll go into it further. You don't need to memorize it right now, but there's different areas that you think about, like critical thinking, leadership and management, organizational and time management, technical skills, functional skills, adaptability and resilience, and obviously communication. So what are they? They're skills that you can apply anywhere. If you have a very specific job with a very specific type of database that was set up just for your role, it is not going to be transferable. However, if you were in charge of doing all the data analytics for that, that is transferable. These do not need to necessarily just be developed through work, but work is obviously the one that you're going to draw on the most, but also military service, education, volunteering, and life experience. People don't think, oh, I just volunteered, I can't put that on there. You know, I volunteered for my son's Boy Scout troop for a number of years. I was the treasurer. It was a lot of work. I was in Excel spreadsheets all the time. So, you know, you think about stuff like that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is where I got these skills. So you have the skills, and being able to show where you got them and how you use them is important too. And being able to draw from that and letting a future employer see how you obtain those skills are great. And then also, it's going to bridge the gap with your current experience and future opportunities. So that means, like I said, if you are currently in a role that you're looking to transition out of, because this is not just about people who've lost their jobs, but also people that want to move into a new industry, being able to show what you're doing now or what you've recently done to those new industries is going to be exactly what the transferable skills are. So looking at the different jobs and understanding them is going to be a huge part of this. Okay, I lied. There was at least one more with a lot of information on here. Once again, we don't need to go into this all, but these are just some examples of the different types of skills. It was the same thing as the honeycomb before, but communication and interpersonal skills. I think all of us probably know how important communication is right now. It is, you know, one of the things that I think companies really lean on the most, and being able to show those skills and have those skills and list those skills are important. Obviously, written verbal communication are great, but also things like team collaboration is huge. Critical thinking, problem solving. So many people coming from the federal workforce or the military service have those exact skills. They've used those skills every day. Decision making, strategic planning, those are huge too. Leadership and management, being able to lead people, being able to delegate responsibilities, and being able to make sure that everything is running is another one. Organization and time management, I say this because that kind of goes hand in hand with those. Prioritization and making sure those deadlines are met. Oh my goodness, those are top tier right now for most organizations. The technical skills that can go across different industries, always, always, always list those. If you worked in healthcare before and you worked with an EMR, list the specific type, because those are usually, I don't want to say universal, but usually pretty transferable. And then adaptability and resilience is, you know, flexibility within the roles, doing those other jobs, taking on those multiple hats within your roles is showing that you're the type of employee that people want to hire. Hard skills versus soft skills. What is a hard skill? A hard skill is something that you had to do, like the Excel or medical coding. It is a very technical and easily measured. Usually you get it through training, through it was through your degree or through certifications. It's very hard to just kind of pick those up. Soft skills are more of those interpersonal skills, behavioral skills, things that you get through your experience, through the job, through your volunteerism. That would be the teamwork. That would be working with cross-functional teams. That would be communication. That would be able to, you know, deliver on deadline. So those are the soft skills. Why do they matter? Because if you're changing an industry, changing a job, these are going to be what shows that you still have these qualifications. So how many people have I talked to recently that said, you know, I look at all these and I don't know if I'm even qualified for it. And I'm like, well, you need to think about what the actual job functionality is, because it is the job functionality and being able to say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. That helps you understand that. Not only do you have to say, nah, yeah, I did that, but you need to be able to articulate how you did it. So whenever you're thinking of going into these new jobs, or you are thinking of or I'm sorry, you are changing or you're thinking of changing, it's always good to start that kind of basic review process and start highlighting some of those. Always good also, if you don't have LinkedIn, get LinkedIn and start putting those skills on there, because once again, whenever they're doing different types of research for candidates, so employers even coming to you, they're searching through skills, not through job titles. So, but they really help whenever you're thinking about, what you have versus what you need to have. So doing those different types of skill assessments and where they can really fit. So I gave some examples here. Military logistics, I mean, they go hand in hand. And what's huge right now? Supply chain, procurement. So understanding that those really are very parallel and being able to understand how to show that. Same with the federal project coordinators and project managers. Now, I put in here Agile project manager. Well, I didn't have Agile. That is something you can learn that we talked about. So knowing that there may still be something you need to grow, but you have the basic understanding of it. Large corporations, like people who have experience with large teams and large projects. Federal projects usually were on the larger scale, so being able to show that will help a lot too. Intelligence analysts can move to data analyst with some different training depending on what the actual job functionality is. IT specialist and cybersecurity, I don't think a lot of people necessarily put one and one of those together. And it's not necessarily just cybersecurity, but there's so many things within cybersecurity, because if you were in the DoD, you had those security clearances, you understand what risks are and how to work around them. And that's actually a huge one as well. There's a couple other here, but I mean, really, you can go almost anywhere and look at what the positions were that you had and what some really big new type of industries that might be hiring right now. So going from like public affairs to digital marketing and compliance to risk and appliance in the in the private industry are going to be, transitional that you could probably find through your own. All right, so how do you identify these transferable skills? It's just as easy as thinking about it. What did I do in my job? I remember whenever I was working with the federal hiring managers, the greatest thing one of them ever said about resumes, because in federal resumes you had to have, I think, a book, and like I said, 20-page resumes. He goes, every single thing you did, you need to say what you did, how you did it, and what the results were. And it's just stuck with me. It was nice, it was easy, it was simple, it was concise, and it really helped when you're trying to build a 2-page resume into a 10-page resume. But now thinking about it and kind of scaling it back, but what did you do? How did you do it? And what the results were are still going to be key in there, because they still want to see successes. They still want to see size. They still want to quantify the different types of successes that you've had. So think about the jobs that you had. Think about what it took you to get it done. Think about the technology that it used or that you used during that time. Also consider all that stuff that you did in volunteering, education. And when I say personal experience, I mean, it's not just, oh, I go home and I wash the dishes at night. It's, every single person in my family calls me and has me set up their computer. I built, 3 different computers. My son could say some of this because he doesn't do the dishes, but the other 2. No, but if you're the tech solver, you can put that in there, that you are somebody that it understands and can really get anybody through those challenges, especially people who are maybe not as tech savvy. Then you're also explaining it to them, and then there's that whole translation. And also look for patterns of what people rely on you for, because what that is that's your strengths. So if every job you have, you end up having to do X, Y, or Z, those seem to be because they are your strengths, and everybody will notice them. There's also a ton of assessment tools out there. I listed a couple. LinkedIn has it everywhere, and you can just put it directly into your profile. Please do. There's also ONET, and these are a lot of these for federal and military.com with the military skills translator, which is really cool. If you haven't got a chance to look at it, do so. Department of Labor, My Next Move, and VMet, the One Stop or Career One Stop. All of them have a lot of great ways to kind of flesh out those skills. A lot of these, though, I just want to say, if you're not using it also for applying, it only goes so far unless, of course, you put it in your resume and you list it in the skills. And it's not just for LinkedIn, but if, let's just say you're applying on Indeed. Once again, it's asking, what skills do you have? You put those skills in that application as well. If you just say, I put it on my resume, they'll figure it out. You are saying, I am doing minimal work and hoping for minimal results. So just remember that it's only getting you half that way. LinkedIn, the nice thing about the skill assessments is you then have a tangible result in your LinkedIn profile.
And spoiler alert, this methodology Jill talked about to think through what you have, it's basically the STAR method. So something we'll talk about on our next webinar on interviewing.
Have a small little bit about it today, but yes, interviewing's a whole other thing. Preparing for that's huge, and understanding how to use your transferable skills and talk about them in an interview. We're going to talk a little bit about today. My biggest thing here is translating specialized experience is translate it. Do not transplant it. That means do not use industry specific jargon if you're changing industries. Federal and military love the acronyms. Everybody loves the acronyms. But for those of you who have done a lot of federal hiring, like I have, every single different agency had the same acronyms, which meant something completely different. And only people in that agency knew what those different acronyms meant to them. So to expect somebody else to sit there and take your acronym and Google somebody in this industry using this acronym, it's not realistic. Make sure you're telling the employer what you have. Make sure that you are using the language that they are using in their job postings. There is no way you can ever expect them to do that work for you. You need to have it done. Also, focus on what you did and why it mattered. What was the result of this? How did this improve the outcome of the organization? Those are going to be key points for that as well. And convert specific terms. So terms are different than job titles. Do not change your own job title, but you can change your terminology. So whenever you're putting out a resume, your job title is your job title. If you were to have a background check and they said that person never had this job, that would not look good, but your terminology within there. So I put a couple examples here of mission coordination. That's project management. Mission coordination is not really something in the private sector that we know much about. Command briefings. That's communication for the executives, executive communication. That's making sure everybody knows. Security. That's compliance, or I'm sorry, security clearance. That's compliance. That's trustworthiness. That's also understanding, different types of security measures as well within an organization. So make sure you're thinking, how can I reflect this for the future employer? Common transferable skills from federal and military roles, leadership and supervision. I mean, everybody's got to do it if you're in the military for any length of time. I have a ton of family in the military, and I think all of them can put this on there, but very few of them think to. Operational logistics, process improvement, and SOP development, risk assessment and compliance. Gerald was just talking about that. Clear communication under pressure. That is actually big to see that. Clear communication is one thing, but to say that you can do it while under different situations is actually a great thing to see. Crisis management goes hand in hand with that one. And then different types of technical tools, proficiencies that you've been able to learn. Even though they may not translate, I'm not saying to throw them out. It's showing that you have the ability to learn and adapt. All right. And then learning about the ways you can apply these transferable skills. So where can these different types of skills take you? If you're looking for things in cybersecurity, which is a big industry right now, you're thinking about those attention to details, compliance, critical thinking. How many of us in one of our roles have had the cybersecurity training, where you had to go through all the flows and tell you how not to click on the links and do that? It's not just about the people in the back end coding. It's about making sure that the entire organization is compliant, because if there is a weak link, it is the weakness for the entire organization. So making sure that everybody is aware and reminding them and getting them engaged so that they will continue to think critically about that stuff is also important. And it's real jobs right now. Healthcare. Healthcare. Can I say enough about healthcare? It's huge right now. Everybody needs it. And as it evolves and as it continues to grow, they need more people that can do the record keeping. Why? Because it's critical. It's somebody else's health. Communication, coordination of services. Oh my goodness. There's so many opportunities within that within that industry right now. Project management. Project management is less traditional, what we thought before. However, leadership, oversight, those types of things are still critical. And
Yeah.
what people used in project management before are now more of those leading roles. Were you going to say something, Gerald?
I was going to say both of these roles, the type of entry level space is very different to how you enter. We get a lot of people that come to us go, oh yeah, I can be a project manager. I'll just apply for a project manager job. And they've never been a project manager before. And they think that someone will just hire them in a big corporation to be a project manager right out of the gate. You have to go for the roles that support the project management teams first. And things like business analysts, scrum masters, projects coordinators, those types of things, other roles that exist in those teams to prove that you can thrive in that environment before you get those project management roles in that corporate space a lot of time if you don't have the corporate experience.
Yes, be willing to understand where your skills can take you is just as important, because if you're constantly applying for director level role only, it may not be something that's able to transfer directly into that level of a role. So where your skills actually take you may be different than where you think you are based on your previous experience. So as you transition and you were, senior level manager of an industry, you may not have that same senior level. It doesn't mean that your skills are not transferable, especially if you're a senior manager, because so many of those soft skills that you're bringing to the table still do count, but it may not exactly transition over into those new industries. It really depends on what you're looking at and the different types of projects. So if you're looking at IT projects versus, more of the corporate and business management projects, every single one of those is different. And you've got to really think about what the functionality of the job you're applying for is and how you have the skills to make sure that that job is completed and done and continues to be successful. I think a lot of these are fairly things that we've already talked about here.
And I just say in general, we tend to get candidates to fall into three categories that have come to us a lot of time. Candidate knows exactly what they're looking for and they're perfectly qualified for what they're looking for. Easy. But no, then you got a lot of candidates who are applying for jobs that they are not ready for in some way. And they are trying to go for jobs that they don't have the skills for, or seeing a salary that they're not going to get based on the industry and what's happening in the market right now. And then we get candidates who don't know what they're looking for, don't understand or undervalue their skills, don't think they can do things, and don't go after jobs that they could be doing and don't see those paths. And a good place to look at when you're thinking how all these skills transfer, when you go through these exercises Jill tells you to go through, look at those job descriptions and the minimum qualifications on the job descriptions and compare it to some of that language to see, do I meet what they're looking for? And then if you meet around like 80% of the minimum job qualifications, it's probably worth applying for that type of role.
Not only do I meet it, but can I show how I meet it?
Good
That's
point,
another
Jill.
one. So
Because then
make
you
sure
read,
you're thinking not just that you do, but also showing that you do is a
and then that's
huge.
when you customize your resume, like Jill's talking about, to make sure when they see your resume apply for that job, they know how your unique background makes you a fit for that role. Because guess what? Companies actually do like getting not cookie cutter candidates and getting diversity of thought by getting candidates that have unique backgrounds that can still do the job come into their organization.
Absolutely, because having a unique perspective is not a bad thing. And I believe a lot of different organizations, especially recently, have seen the value of bringing somebody that comes from a different background and seeing what kind of additional redundancies that they can change and improve on. So a lot of people coming from federal industry are now, able to come in and look at the structure and look at how, the processes and the procedures are, and they may be able to provide a different perspective on how to get it done more effectively. And there's a lot of value to that. So they are definitely not opposed to it. Best things that you can do, and these are some of my tips, and I know I probably said all of them, but I'm gonna hit them one more time. Tailor your resume. Change your verbiage to match the employer verbiage. If you are going and applying, we talked about AI, we talked about automation. It is something we have to deal with, especially in recruitment. You will be looked at based on your verbiage. The computer says to the employer, what are you looking for? They put it in there. If your resume does not match what they are looking for, the computer doesn't understand that you are the same, that you are a great person for it. Match your verbiage. Civilian friendly language, avoid those acronyms, avoid that jargon. This is not just for federal and for military people. It is also just for people changing from one industry to another. If you are a manager and you were even a hiring manager for some of these roles, and let's say you worked in specifically healthcare, IT, cybersecurity. Generally speaking, if somebody comes from a different healthcare, IT, cybersecurity background, you'll know what most of the things were that they did. But now that there's such a ability to pivot and change, you need to make sure that yours is universal as possible. So the jargon that may have gone from one to another may now be much more industry specific, and you, the applicant, needs to be the one changing that. Um, Focus your LinkedIn on your strengths, not just your past titles. Like I said, go in, get those skills, list those skills. When you do searching in LinkedIn, you don't search based on job titles. You can look at the job titles, but you are searching based on the skills. If you do not have your skills listed, you are not getting looked at by employers that may be looking for somebody with your skills. Another great thing about LinkedIn is you can also have endorsements, certifications, and then other types of information that employers may be looking for. Endorsements are great. They're taking over for a lot of the referrals. I'm sorry, not referrals. It's taking over for a lot of the
References.
thank you. Ooh, I lost that word for a second there. But it's you're seeing them, you're seeing that somebody's out there in the industry saying, yeah, this person's great. Get those endorsements, get those certifications up on your LinkedIn. Those are going to be huge too. If you think about it, you did some project coordination in the federal government, but then you've taken the time to learn agile methodology, and you've taken the time to learn, whether it be, through PMP or through Google, whatever it should be, you learn project management. Put those on there. You did that. That shows not just that you're continuing learning, that you're able to continually improve, but also that you have the knowledge of the current industry standard. Make sure you also put when you got it, because having a, Microsoft Office certification from 2010 is a lot different than one from 2025. Just make sure that you include all that information on there if possible. And then in interviews, I said I was going to touch on this real quick. You need to be prepared. You the applicant needs to be ready. You need to review that job posting and ask yourself with each one of those qualifications, how do I show that I'm qualified for this? How am I able to do that? And that's through the STAR method. It's like Gerald knew what I was going to talk about. STAR method. And STAR method is just a way to organize your thoughts and way to show this. So you start with the situation, then the specific task, then the action you took, and the result. Make sure that you have a couple examples. Don't just come in with one, because you may think of one example and then that's not even asked during the interview. You need to think of a couple different examples of successful situations that you've gone through. And once you start thinking about them, there will be a couple that'll kind of boil up to the top. Those are usually your best examples. You need to show the outcomes and the relevance to the new role, which means it is up to you to show how your old experience is relevant to what they're looking for. Same with adaptability. Make sure that you learned within your role. If you did other jobs, if you wore other hats, that you're able to draw from that as well. All right. I have a couple resources for everybody, and then I know we wanted to have a couple minutes for Q&A. Tools to support you in your transition. When you're going upskilling, love the word, upskilling and certifications, Google Career certifications, CompTIA, PMP, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. Some of them do cost, some of them are free. Basic learning and basic skills. YouTube's always also a resource as well to kind of get your understanding of it, or to get exposure to the first entry into different new areas. So if you were before more on the side of the business analyst side, but you really want to understand how UX and UI kind of integrate into that, you can go and you can learn, watch a couple videos and say, oh, this is definitely something I want to learn more about, and then get certified in it. There's also tons of career guidance. Like I said, there's so many different things for veterans transitioning, people from the federal workforce transitioning, and then LinkedIn has so many great opportunities as well. So the different ones listed here, and then also the different job boards. And those are ones that I definitely tell everyone to take their time and make sure they do it right on. Make sure your resume is the best it can be. USA Jobs, there is some jobs still out there. Make sure you're exploring that. Make sure you build in each and every one of these. I know it's a pain. Build your profile every single time. Doesn't matter actually if it's a job board, even if it's a specific company. Don't just upload your resume and say, they'll figure it out. No, you show that you take the initiative. And how do you do that? By doing the work that needs to be done so you can be seen as the best candidate that you are. So make sure that you actually build your profile. Yes, upload a resume too, but also build it in theirs. Why? Because everybody's applicant tracking system is different. And if you really want to be discovered, you'll take the time to make sure it's put in correctly. If you already have the skills, use them. So that means that you have acquired skills. You need to be able to articulate them, and you need to be able to tell others how you can use them for the benefit of the position that you're applying for. So we already talked about it. Think about what you did. How do you translate that? That's going to be key. And there are so many things out there that can help you translate that. I mean, you can go anywhere from just Googling it to, free open source AI, to all of the different types of websites and things that we've talked about here. Skills are not lost. They change, they evolve. So if an industry is not necessarily what it used to be, there are still things that can evolve and change with you. It does seem overwhelming. I understand that. So start one step. Just do one. Look at one job. Think about one position that you're looking at and how to articulate it, or look at your resume and how do you find the skills and really kind of flesh them out. And then connect with others on the same path. Hear about their successes, hear about where they went to, what they're looking at, what they're transitioning to. So you never know what somebody else may think of that you didn't, because we're all in this together. Okay.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for sending in some questions for us to answer ahead of time. A lot of these great questions you've got covered in the slides. So I'm just going to pick a few in the few minutes we have left, Jill, to throw at you and see what your thoughts are.
Okay.
I like this one. How do I make my resume stand out when I am competing with people who already work in the industry?
That is a great question. So whenever you're thinking about how do you make yourself stand out, you need to think about what do you bring that's unique or that's different. So whenever you're thinking about, okay, they know what they have and they know what this job is, how can I possibly be somebody that is above, I don't want to say above them, but equal to, but coming from a different industry. So you bring your unique perspective and you bring your understanding of other industries and how those are applicable. And then also those soft skills. Those soft skills are so important because those are equivalent and those do transfer everywhere. So whenever you're thinking of, how do I possibly show these soft skills, you need to show how you use them. So make sure that you show how you led a team, how you manage. And this is going to be in your resume because that's the first step, getting past that applicant tracking system, getting to what I call the human eyes for them to review, for them to look over, for them to understand. That's going to be a very big one about how to make sure that you are seen. You need to have the skills that they're looking for, and then having that unique perspective can definitely be a benefit in your favor.
And I would just add, go to our YouTube channel on Bender Consulting. Just Google that or search YouTube for Bender Consulting and watch our last webinar we did where we talked a lot about retooling your resume. You should not do things like put your picture on it to make it stand out and things like that. So we talk a
Yes.
lot about the things that you can do there to retool your resume to make it stand out in this market. And Jill brought some really great stuff to that webinar as well. What keywords should I include to get past applicant tracking systems?
All right. This is really, really industry specific information. Are you ready? If I'm
Yeah.
asking for it on the job description, it means I want to hear that you have it.
Yeah.
So if you see it in the I say job descriptions are made up of a couple different parts. You have the summary, you have the responsibilities. The responsibilities are what you will be doing. This is me as an employer or future employer telling the prospective person, this is what you'll be doing. But then I have qualifications. This section to me is what I want to see. So looking at those qualifications and saying that you have them, it's the easiest way to get through it.
And I would add to
Show
that too. Look at the description and see what am I going to be doing in the job every day if I get this job, right? Have I done things like that before? In what ways have I done it? And how can I show that I've done that before? Whether it's talking to clients or whatever you can add that's relevant. Anything you can add that's relevant through those steps Jill talked about before, you throw that in because all of that are keywords too that those tracking systems are going to care about and that the recruiters are going to care about because guess what? Our brains are like an applicant tracking system. We're scanning those resumes, looking for the things that stand out to us as to who we want to prioritize calling first. So, all right, those are some great questions. I think that's about all we have time for with questions, though. Jill, I want to close out by thanking you because you brought such incredible information to this webinar, wonderful stuff to help people find their next role. And for our wonderful audience, was talking to a leader at a company we work with who's now an executive, and they said to me, it's rare the most successful people's careers are a straight line. Most of the time, it looks like a crazy chart that's got all these zigzags on the way up. You don't just go, well, it's not linear. You just got to find the right spot to move around. And sometimes that means going down in pay and down in level of role to make the right change. And when you're thinking about these steps in your career, you got to think not just about what is this next step, but the long term where you will go. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in September for resume building. Not resume, but interviewing. Sorry.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.